Hey, I'm Q Paul, and welcome to Lesson 23 in our series. I'm super excited about today's lesson because I'm going to be introducing you to something that is going to propel your Spanish. The subjunctive. This is a grammatical term that many English speakers are completely unfamiliar with. Now, the subjunctive does appear in English, but it's not that big a deal. However, in Spanish, it is a huge deal. In fact, I consider the subjunctive the keystone to mastering the language. During this course, we've talked a little bit about tenses, like present tense and simple past tense. I go, I went. Well, the subjunctive is similar to a tense in the sense that it conjugates. However, it can appear in the past, present, future, etc., so they call it a mood. I realize all of that sounded super confusing, but don't stop the video yet. I assure you that explaining what the subjunctive is far more complicated than actually using it. Let me show you what I mean. In the course, we've talked a lot about what you want to do, desire. So you should be able to translate a simple sentence like, I want to go to the beach. Quiero ir a la playa. You should also be able to ask someone what they want to do. Do you want to go to the beach? ¿Quieres ir a la playa? But what about a sentence like this? Do you want me to go to the beach? Now, it's a pretty simple sentence, but you can't conjugate it without the subjunctive. Since the subjunctive mood is not super important in English, a lot of Spanish students kind of glaze over it and they don't spend enough time on it. As a result, I've heard intermediate and even advanced students coming up with sentences like the ones that appear on the board. By the way, these are 100% incorrect. Do not write these down. Here's what it should look like. Do you want me to go to the beach? ¿Quieres que yo vaya a la playa? The word vaya is in the subjunctive mood. I know that this sentence looks very different than some of the simple ones we did before, like I want to go to the beach and do you want to go to the beach, but it still follows simple plug-and-play patterns. I'm going to need a little bit more space now, so I'm going to move this over to the big screen. There are 3 components to utilizing the subjunctive correctly. 1, knowing when to use it. You've already seen it's not used in every sentence. 2, knowing how to restructure the sentence so it's still grammatically correct. And 3, knowing how to conjugate the verb that's in the subjunctive mood. Let's start with the first one, when to use it. That's not a simple one because the subjunctive is a huge topic and it's used in different ways throughout the language. So the easiest way is to just break it down and focus on one particular aspect of the subjunctive at a time. Take a look at that verb down there, quieres. It means you want, or in the case of a question like this, do you want? It's a verb of desire. That's one of the triggers of the subjunctive, a verb of desire or request. The second thing we need is a change of subject. You're not simply telling me what you want to do, you're telling me what you want me to do. So you and I are both subjects of the sentence. When we match that up with a verb of either desire or request, that tells us we're going to be using the subjunctive. Here's a visual aid to help you remember. I always think it's helpful to think of things like a checklist. Is there a verb of desire or request? Check. Is there more than one subject of the sentence? Check. That tells me I'm probably going to be using the subjunctive. Now, there are exceptions, but we won't be talking about those today. Let's talk about the second component of using the subjunctive correctly, how to structure our sentence. You'll see that I put in the word que. Now there, you're going to be doing that every single time when you have the subject change. So think of just plugging it in. You have your verb, quieres, quiero, whatever, and then you're always going to put in que. The second subject and verb, everything will appear after que. So now let's look at the actual conjugation. In this case, we have vaya. This is from the verb ir, to go. You've used this one a lot in this course. If we're going to conjugate it in the present subjunctive mood, it would go like this. Vaya, vayas, vaya, vayamos, and vayan. Normally the first person conjugation, meaning I or yo in Spanish, is unique. That's why I never have to include the word yo. It's always very clear. But in the case of the present subjunctive, it matches the third person singular. That basically means that if you're speaking in the present subjunctive, You might want to go ahead and use the word yo in there, just so it's really clear who the subject is. All right, let's work through one together. Take a look at this sentence. I want you to go to the beach. This sentence has a verb of desire or request, to want, and two subjects, I and you. That tells me I'm going to be using the subjunctive. We know we're going to be using the word que, so let's just start right from the beginning. Quiero que. Now the que really isn't translated. If you want to remember it, you can think of it as the word that. I want that something happens. Now we just conjugate the verb ir, to go, into the correct form of the present subjunctive, and we end up with Quiero que vayas a la playa. I want you to go to the beach. See, that wasn't so hard, was it? You learned a couple rules, a plug-and-play phrase, and a new conjugation. Piece of cake. We're going to be exploring this one a lot more in the next few lessons. Hasta luego.